My name is Hannah Scott. I'm 32 years old, and until recently, my life ran on structure. Not because I didn't feel things, but because structure kept everything contained. Predictable, clean. It was how I made sense of life when emotions tried to blur the edges. I work as a logistics analyst for a shipping company in Valencia. My weeks are built out of spreadsheets, port schedules, and late calls with people in different time zones. It's not glamorous, but it's stable, reliable. I've never needed more than that. I pay my bills early. I keep receipts. I don't leave things unresolved. Daniel Carter was the opposite of me in almost every way. He's 29, works in public relations for a hospitality group. His life doesn't follow a schedule, it flows. Late night events, endless conversations, unpredictable plans that stretch longer than they should. Where I build systems, he builds impressions. At the beginning, I thought that contrast made us stronger. Balance, we called it. We had been together for just over 3 years, engaged for 8 months, living in a 2-bedroom apartment that, for a long time, felt like something we were building together. The wedding was set for early summer. Not huge, about 70 people, but not cheap either. Daniel wanted it to look expensive without being called expensive. He had opinions about everything. The color of the flowers, the texture of the table linens, the lighting, the photographer's style. I could handle opinions. What wore me down was how he delivered them. Like every vendor should feel lucky he even showed up. I agreed to take overtime at work because it felt cleaner than debt. My company was short-staffed, which meant overtime was practically unlimited if you were willing to give up your evenings and your weekends. So I did. Extra shifts, late nights, Saturdays. I told myself it was temporary, that it was for us. Daniel said he appreciated it, but his actions felt more like he appreciated the results. He'd ask how much I made that week, then immediately suggest upgrades. Maybe we should go with better flowers. The bar package feels a bit basic. I don't love the photographer anymore. The vibe is off. If I hesitated, even slightly, he'd roll his eyes. You're acting poor, Hannah. It was always said lightly, almost joking, but not really. At home, things started to shift in quieter ways. Daniel was on his phone constantly, not in a normal way, more reactive, tilting the screen when I walked past, smiling at something, then immediately going neutral when I asked what was funny. He started putting more effort into how he looked, even for small things. Full outfit changes to run errands. Cologne on a Tuesday afternoon when he claimed he was just meeting a friend for coffee. I didn't accuse him, not because I didn't notice, but because I didn't have proof. And I'm not the kind of person who interrogates someone I love like I'm building a case. Still, patterns don't need proof to feel real. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Last week, I came home after a 12-hour shift. The apartment was quiet. Daniel's laptop was open on the couch. I wasn't trying to snoop. I was just there. Then a notification popped up and disappeared almost immediately. But I saw the name. Lila. I knew that name. Lila was his ex-girlfriend. The one he called toxic. The one he said he learned his lesson from. The one he promised, very clearly, he had blocked everywhere. I stood there for a second longer than I should have. And then Daniel walked in from the kitchen. He saw me near the laptop and his expression shifted instantly. Not guilt. Annoyance. Why are you hovering like that? He snapped. I blinked, stepping back slightly. I just got home, I said. I'm tired. That part was true. But it wasn't the whole truth. Because now something had lodged itself in my mind. A simple question that wouldn't go away. If Lila was blocked, why was her name still showing up? The next morning, I didn't bring it up. I made coffee, packed my lunch, left for work like I always do. Daniel barely looked up from his phone. Before I walked out, he asked, "Can you send me the login for the wedding venue portal?" I paused. Oh, why? I want to double-check the seating chart. I nodded slowly. Okay. He smiled faintly, already back on his screen. Not because anything was wrong, just because Daniel had a habit of circling problems until he created one. At work, I tried to focus, but my mind kept replaying that notification. Lila, a name that wasn't supposed to exist in our life anymore. Around midday, Daniel texted me a list of upgrades. Different cake tasting, linen napkins instead of paper, a photo booth because someone else's wedding had one and it looked fun. I stared at the message for a moment before replying. We can talk tonight. He responded with a thumbs down emoji, like I was an employee who missed a deadline. I got home late again. The apartment lights were on. Daniel was in the bedroom, the door mostly closed, not fully shut, just enough to say, "Don't come in." I walked past quietly, and I heard him laughing. Not casually, not the way he laughs with me. This was different. Lighter, sharper, performative. The kind of laugh he uses when he's trying to impress someone. The moment my footsteps got closer, The laughing stopped. A minute later, the door opened. Daniel stepped out, expression neutral, too neutral. I was just on the phone with Mia, he said quickly. I nodded. Okay. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm not. He shrugged. Whatever. Then, almost immediately, did you pick up the deposit receipt for the florist? I blinked. I paid it online last week. I know, he said, rolling his eyes. I just like having paper copies. You forget things. That was new. Little comments about my reliability. While I was the one funding everything. After dinner, he went to take a shower and left his phone on the kitchen counter. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to, because something had already shifted inside me. Not anger. Not yet. Just awareness. The kind that makes you start paying attention to everything. I didn't confront Daniel the next morning. Not because I was afraid of the answer, but because I wasn't ready to hear a version of the truth that I couldn't verify. So instead, I paid attention. Really paid attention. The small things started stacking faster once I stopped trying to explain them away. Daniel woke up earlier than usual that day, already on his phone before he even got out of bed. His screen lit his face in that soft blue glow, and for a second, I just watched him. He smiled. Not at me. At whoever was on that screen. Morning, I said quietly. He glanced up, smile disappearing instantly. Hey. Flat, neutral, like I had interrupted something. He got out of bed, took his phone with him into the bathroom, closed the door. I sat there for a moment, staring at the space he had just left behind. Something about that small automatic movement, the phone going with him, felt louder than anything he could have said. At work, I tried to lose myself in numbers. Container delays, shipment reroutes, a scheduling issue in Rotterdam that needed immediate attention. Normally, that kind of problem would pull me in completely. But not today. Around lunchtime, I opened my phone. No new messages from Daniel. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was how intentional the silence felt, like communication had become selective, controlled. Around 2 in the afternoon, he finally texted, running late tonight. Work dinner. I stared at the message. Simple, casual, too clean. What time? I replied. 7-ish. Might go long. I looked at those words for a few seconds longer than necessary. Then I typed back. Okay. That was it. No questions. No suspicion. Because at that point, I wasn't looking for explanations anymore. I was looking for confirmation. I got home earlier than him that evening. The apartment was quiet again. His laptop sat on the couch. Open. Same as before. For a moment, I just stood there. Then I walked over slowly. Not rushing. Not hesitating. Just moving forward. The screen was still active. An email tab open. And there it was. A reservation confirmation. Restaurant name I recognized instantly. Popular place, not far from our apartment. The kind of place people go for dates, anniversaries, something intentional. My eyes moved across the screen carefully. Reservation for 2. Name Daniel Carter. Time 8 p.m. Then the line that made everything settle into place. Anniversary table requested, if possible. Anniversary. I checked the date again. Tonight. The same night as his work dinner. For a second, I didn't feel anything. No anger. No panic. Just stillness. Like my mind had finally aligned with something my instincts already knew. I took out my phone. Took a photo of the screen. Made sure the details were clear. Then I put his laptop back exactly the way it was. Same angle. Same position. Nothing disturbed. Because this wasn't about catching him anymore. It was about understanding what I was about to do next. When Daniel came home, he acted normal. Too normal. He kissed my cheek. Asked about my day. Talked about some minor issue at work like nothing else existed. I watched him while he spoke. Not emotionally. Objectively. Like I was seeing him clearly for the first time. Big dinner tonight? I asked casually. He nodded, already scrolling through his phone again. Yeah, team thing. Probably boring. I nodded. Hope it goes okay. He smiled slightly. Thanks. That smile didn't reach his eyes. Around 6:30, he started getting ready. And that's when it became undeniable. This wasn't work. This was something else. He changed outfits twice. Settled on a fitted shirt I had only seen him wear to events. Used cologne, not lightly, deliberately. Carefully styled his hair. Checked himself in the mirror more than once. I leaned against the doorway, arms folded. You said this was a work dinner, I said lightly. He glanced at me in the mirror. It is. I tilted my head slightly. You look very prepared for it. He shrugged. You never know who's going to be there. I nodded slowly. Right. He didn't notice the shift in my tone. Or maybe he did, and chose to ignore it. At 7:10, he grabbed his phone and wallet. I might be late, he said. Don't wait up. I gave a small smile. Okay. He left. The door clicked shut behind him. And just like that, the apartment felt completely different, quieter, clearer. I waited 10 minutes, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to remove any possibility that I was reacting too quickly. Then I grabbed my keys and left. The restaurant was 15 minutes away. Close. Too close for a lie about across town. When I arrived, the outdoor tables were already filling up. Warm lights spilled out from inside. Soft music. The low hum of conversations layered over clinking glasses. Normal. Everything about the place felt normal, except for the reason I was there. I parked across the street, sat in the car, watched the entrance. At exactly 8 p.m., Daniel stepped out of a car, and she was already there. Lila. I recognized her immediately, not because I had ever met her, but because I had seen enough photos, and she looked exactly like I expected. Confident, carefully put together, the kind of presence that draws attention without asking for it. They didn't hesitate, didn't act unsure, didn't look like two people reconnecting awkwardly. They moved toward each other like this wasn't new, like this had happened before. Their hug lasted just a second too long. Not friendly, not distant, familiar, comfortable, intimate in a way that doesn't need explanation. Then they walked inside together, side by side, like they belonged there. I sat in the car for a few minutes after that, not crying, not shaking, just still. Because at that point, everything had become very simple. My fiancé, the man I was working overtime for, the man I was planning a future with, was having an anniversary dinner with his ex-girlfriend and lying to me about it without hesitation. The worst part wasn't even the cheating. It was how easily he lived inside both realities, with me and without me, at the same time. After 5 minutes, I started the engine. Not to follow them, not to confront them, just to go home, because I already knew what I needed to do. And it didn't involve them at all. I didn't go back to the restaurant. There was nothing left for me to see there. Whatever I needed to understand, I already did. So I drove home, calmly. No music, no distractions, just the steady rhythm of the road and the quiet certainty settling into place inside my chest. By the time I parked outside our apartment, I wasn't thinking about Daniel and Lila sitting across from each other anymore. I was thinking about contracts, numbers, deadlines, what could still be undone. That was the first shift. Not emotional, practical. I walked inside, locked the door behind me, and went straight to the kitchen table. My laptop was already there, still open from earlier. I sat down, exhaled slowly, and opened the first folder. Wedding. For a second, I just looked at the name. Then I clicked. Venue, catering, photographer, florist, DJ, rentals. Each contract neatly saved, organized, labeled, just the way I like things. I opened the venue agreement first. 30% deposit already paid, another 20 due in 2 months. I checked the date. We were still just inside the window before the second payment would be processed. That mattered. I grabbed a pen and a blank sheet of paper. Started writing. Vendor name. Deposit amount. Refund policy. Cancellation contact. It felt familiar, like work. A problem broken down into manageable parts. No emotion required. At 9:30, my phone buzzed. Daniel. I looked at the screen. Dinner's dragging. Might grab a drink after with the team. A small smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Not amusement. Recognition. He was still playing the role. Still maintaining the version of reality he thought I believed in. I placed the phone face down. Didn't reply. Instead, I opened my email. Typed out the first message. To the venue coordinator. Short, direct. Due to personal circumstances, the wedding is canceled. Please confirm refund amount based on contract terms. I read it once, then sent it. One click. That was it. The first real action. The first irreversible step. I didn't hesitate. Moved on to the next. Photographer. Deposit non-refundable, but date releasable with early notice. Same message. Sent. Catering. Partial refund depending on timing. We were still early enough. Sent. With each email, something inside me settled further. Not heavier, clearer. Like I was finally aligning my actions with reality. At 10:15, my phone buzzed again. Daniel. This time I picked it up. Can you transfer 2,000 euros from the joint account? Decorator needs confirmation for upgraded lighting. I stared at the message, read it twice, then let out a quiet, short laugh. Not loud, not dramatic, just disbelief distilled into a single breath. While he was sitting at that restaurant, across from Lila, celebrating something he couldn't even be honest about, he was still asking me to fund the wedding, our wedding. I set the phone down again, didn't respond. Instead, I opened the decorator contract, Scrolled through. Final design approval already submitted. Non-refundable after that point. Of course it was. I logged into the vendor portal. Daniel's account was still active. Everything exactly where we left it, except for one detail. The upgraded lighting package. Approved earlier that afternoon. By him. I leaned back slightly in the chair. There it was. The last piece. Not confusion. Not hesitation. Not a mistake. Just a decision. His. To live two separate lives. And assume I would never connect them. I closed the portal. And continued. DJ. Rental company. Florist. One by one. Email by email. Each message clean. Professional. Final. By the time I finished, my mind had fully shifted into something else entirely. No longer partner. No longer fiancé. Just someone closing a project that should never have been completed. I opened the wedding website next. Logged in. Changed the password. Not out of spite. Just necessity. Then logged out. And sat there for a moment. The apartment felt different. Not empty. Not yet. But detached. Like something had already ended, even if the other person hadn't realized it. I stood up. Walked slowly into the bedroom. Opened the closet. His side. Clothes arranged loosely. Shoes scattered near the bottom. Nothing particularly organized. That felt fitting. I grabbed 2 large storage boxes from the hallway closet. Carried them inside. Set them on the bed. And started packing. Not aggressively. Not emotionally. Just efficiently. Shirts first. Folded where it made sense. Stacked neatly. Pants. Jackets. Then shoes. Placed side by side. It didn't take long. Less than I expected. While I worked, my phone buzzed again. I didn't need to check it. I already knew who it was. But eventually, I glanced. A photo from Daniel. A cocktail. Caption. Surviving the team. I looked closer. The napkin in the corner of the photo carried the restaurant's logo. The same one from the reservation. He either didn't notice or didn't care enough to hide it. I set the phone down. Didn't respond. Didn't react. Just continued packing. Bathroom next. Half the cabinet. Cologne bottles. Hair products. Skincare items he rarely used but insisted on owning. All into another box. Living room. Small things. The watch he left on the table. Chargers. A jacket draped over the chair. Everything that belonged to him. Everything that didn't belong to me. By the time I finished, 4 boxes were stacked neatly by the front door. Clean. Organized. Ready. I walked back to the kitchen. Sat down. Opened my laptop again. New email. From the venue. Cancellation confirmed. Partial refund approved, minus administrative fees. I read the number once. Then again. Almost 6,000 euros saved. I leaned back slowly. Exhaled. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just confirmation. I had acted in time. My eyes moved toward the front door. Toward the boxes. Daniel still thought he was out having a normal night. A work dinner. Maybe drinks after. Still thinking he had time. Still thinking nothing had changed. What he didn't know was that by the time he came home tonight, there would be no wedding left to come back to, and no version of this relationship still waiting for him. Daniel came home a little after midnight. I heard him before I saw him. The soft, uneven rhythm of his footsteps in the hallway, the faint click of his shoes against the floor. Then the sound of keys shifting in his hand before the lock turned. I didn't move. I was still sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, exactly where he had left me earlier that evening. The door opened, and for a brief second, everything was quiet. Then he stepped inside. The first thing he noticed wasn't me. It was the boxes. 4 of them, stacked neatly by the door. His jackets folded on top. Shoes aligned beside them. Small personal items placed carefully, like this was some kind of organized move rather than a breakup. At the very top, the framed sample of our wedding invitation. He froze, just for a second. Then his face shifted, not into confusion, into irritation. "What is this?" he asked sharply. His voice cut through the silence like this was an inconvenience he hadn't scheduled for. I looked at him calmly. "I packed your things," I said. "You can take them tonight." For a moment, he just stared at me. Then came the reaction I expected. Fast. Defensive. Dismissive. He dropped his keys onto the counter harder than necessary and let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Are you serious right now?" I didn't answer. Didn't need to. He ran a hand through his hair, already gearing up for a version of the conversation where he stayed in control. "This is because I was late," he said. "You packed my stuff because I had a work dinner?" I turned the laptop toward him. Didn't say anything. Just let the screen speak. The reservation email. His name. The time. The note. Anniversary table requested. His eyes moved across it quickly. Too quickly. Just enough to register. Then he looked away and rolled his eyes. Not guilt, not shock, annoyance. Oh my God, Hannah, he said, shaking his head. This is what this is about? I stayed quiet. Let him continue. Lila and I ran into each other recently, he said. We decided to catch up. That's it. I watched him carefully. The ease, the confidence, the assumption that words alone could reshape reality. That note, anniversary. That's probably just something the restaurant adds automatically, he continued. You're overreacting. Again. Like this was a pattern. Like I was the problem. I let him finish. Every word, every deflection, every attempt to minimize what I had already seen with my own eyes. Then I spoke. I canceled the wedding. That was the moment everything paused. His expression changed. Not completely, but enough. What? He said, blinking. I canceled everything, I repeated. Venue, catering, photographer, all of it. He stared at me. This time, there was no immediate response. No quick comeback. Just a gap. A moment where the situation finally reached him. What do you mean you canceled it? He asked, slower now. I mean, there isn't a wedding anymore. Silence filled the space between us. And then, what about the deposits? Of course. That was the question. Not why. Not how. Not even an attempt at understanding. Just money. I nodded slightly. Some are refundable, some aren't. His jaw tightened. You had no right to do that without talking to me. I met his eyes. I was paying for most of it, I said calmly, while you were at dinner with your ex. That landed, not because it hurt him, but because it removed his ability to pretend. The room went quiet again. He looked at the boxes, then back at me, and then he laughed. Short, sharp. You're acting like a jealous child, he said. I shrugged. Maybe. His eyes narrowed. You followed me, didn't you? Yes. He let out a breath through his nose, shaking his head like he had just confirmed something ridiculous. Wow, he said. So now you're stalking me too? I didn't react. Didn't defend myself. Didn't argue the framing. Because it didn't matter. If you had told me you wanted to reconnect with her, I said evenly, I would have ended this months ago. He scoffed. You're twisting this. No, I said, I'm simplifying it. He crossed his arms, leaning back against the counter. That dinner meant nothing, he said. Nothing happened. I nodded once. I believe you. That seemed to catch him off guard. For a second he hesitated. Then he frowned. Then what's the problem? I held his gaze. The problem is that you set up a secret dinner with your ex, I said, while planning a wedding with me, and you lied about it. He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, because there wasn't a version of that he could reframe. Another silence. He shifted his weight, glancing toward the door, toward the boxes, then back at me. So what? He said finally. You're just ending everything over this? Yes. No hesitation. No buildup. Just the answer. His expression hardened. You're unbelievable, he said. 3 years, and this is how you handle things? I didn't respond, because the question wasn't real. It was just another attempt to pull me into a different conversation. One where I explained myself, justified my decision, gave him something to push against. I wasn't going to do that. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his forehead. Where exactly am I supposed to go right now? He asked. I tilted my head slightly. Nico seems like a good starting point, I said. For a second, I thought he might snap. But instead, he laughed again. This time louder, more irritated, like I had just made things inconvenient for him. He grabbed his phone, walked toward the door, then stopped, turned back. You really expect me to carry all this alone? He said, gesturing at the boxes. I'll help you bring them downstairs, I said. Faster that way. Not kindness. Just efficiency. We moved in silence. Box by box. The hallway was empty. The elevator ride even quieter. He didn't look at me. Didn't speak. Just kept tapping on his phone between trips. Probably texting someone. When we reached the building entrance, a car was already waiting. Engine running. Driver inside. That answered the question. He had already made arrangements. We loaded the boxes into the trunk, one by one. He shoved the smaller bags in without much care, then turned toward me. Still no apology. No explanation. Just that same expression. Annoyed. Dismissive. You're going to regret this, he said, when you calm down. I met his gaze. I won't. He rolled his eyes one last time, then got into the car. The door closed. The trunk shut. And just like that, the car pulled away. No shouting. No scene. No dramatic ending. Just movement. Forward. I stood there for a few seconds after the car disappeared. The street felt strangely quiet. Then I turned and walked back inside. The apartment felt different now. Not empty. Not yet. But clear. like something had been removed that no longer belonged there. I stepped into the bedroom. The closet looked smaller, half of it gone. I walked back to the living room, sat down on the couch, and for the first time that entire day, I picked up my phone. 3 messages, all from Daniel. The first, "You're insane." The second, "We need to talk like adults." The third, "Canceling the wedding without discussing it is financial abuse." I read them once, then blocked his number. One by one, I blocked him everywhere. Messages, social media, even the shared wedding planning group chat. The silence that followed was immediate, complete. For the first time in months, there was nothing waiting for me to respond to. No tension, no explanation required, just quiet. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I couldn't sleep, not because my mind was racing, just awake, like my body had already accepted something my emotions hadn't fully processed yet. The apartment was quiet, not heavy, not lonely, just still. I got out of bed, walked into the kitchen, and made coffee. Same routine, same movements, but everything felt slightly different. Lighter, cleaner. I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop, opened my email. Several new messages had come in overnight. Vendors, confirmations, refund details. No emotion in any of them, just business. The photographer confirmed the date had been released. The catering company outlined the refund schedule. The DJ sent a short note saying they understood and wished me well. I read through each one carefully, checked the numbers, calculated what was coming back and what was already lost. In total, I had lost some money, but far less than I would have if I had waited even another few weeks. That mattered, not because of the money itself, but because it confirmed something simple. I didn't hesitate when it counted. I took a sip of coffee, opened the next email, closed the next account, one by one. Around 9 a.m., my phone started buzzing. Messages, not from Daniel, from everyone else. His cousin, a mutual friend. Then my sister. That didn't surprise me. Daniel wasn't the type to stay quiet. He needed control. And when he lost it in one place, he tried to rebuild it somewhere else. Narrative, perspective, blame. My sister called instead of texting. I answered. "Hey," she said carefully. "What's going on?" I leaned back slightly in my chair. "Daniel had dinner with his ex," I said, while telling me he was at a work event. So I canceled the wedding. There was a short pause. Then, "Yeah," she said. "That sounds about right." I let out a small breath. Not quite a laugh. Just acknowledgement. She had never fully trusted him. Not because of anything obvious. Just small things. The way he talked. The way he shifted responsibility. The way he made everything feel like it needed to revolve around him. We spoke for a few more minutes. Nothing dramatic. Just clarity. After the call ended, I opened the wedding group chat. Both families. Friends. People who had already made travel plans. I typed slowly. Carefully. "The wedding has been canceled due to personal circumstances. Vendors have been notified. I apologize for the inconvenience and appreciate your understanding." No details. No emotion. Just facts. I read it once. Then sent it and left the group. That was it. No explanations. No follow-up. About 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I stared at it for a second, then answered. "Hannah?" "Daniel," using someone else's phone. I didn't respond. I just hung up and blocked the number. Whatever he wanted to say at that point didn't matter anymore. The decision had already been made. The rest of the day passed quietly. Work helped. It always does. Logistics doesn't pause because your personal life changes. Ships still arrive. Schedules still shift. Problems still need solving. And for a few hours, that was enough. During lunch, I finished closing out the last pieces of the wedding. Refund confirmations. Final balances. Everything accounted for. Clean. Contained. Done. Daniel tried a few more times over the next couple of days. Another unknown number. An email from an address I didn't recognize, but didn't need to. Same tone. "We need to talk." "You're overreacting." "You're throwing away 3 years over nothing." I didn't respond. Blocked each one. Moved on. A few days later, one of our mutual friends sent me a message. Not gossip. Just information. "It just thought you had to know," she wrote. "Daniel's been seen with Lila again, a couple times this week." I read it, then set my phone down. No reaction. Because it didn't change anything. If anything, it confirmed everything. According to her, he was already telling people the wedding ending was for the best. That we were never really compatible. I almost smiled at that, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. Rewriting the story to make himself comfortable. Meanwhile, my reality was simple. The apartment was quieter. My schedule had returned to normal. No more overtime. No more pushing myself past exhaustion to maintain something that wasn't real. The money I used to set aside for the wedding stayed in my account, where it belonged. 2 weeks later, I opened my laptop. There was one last folder. June wedding. I looked at it for a few seconds, not remembering, not replaying, just seeing it for what it was. A plan. That no longer existed. I right-clicked, deleted it. No hesitation, no second thought. Gone. People keep asking me the same question. Why didn't you fight for it? Why didn't you argue more? Try to fix things? The answer is simple. Once someone is comfortable lying to your face, while you're building a future together, the future is already gone. All I did